When I pull up on you, then I might swear, ayy. Double off deuce, ayy. That just might work, ayy. When I pull up on you, then I might swear, ayy. Double off deuce, ayy. That just might work, ayy. That just might work.
Welcome back to another episode of the Michel Matters Podcast. I'm Jocks Michel.
And I'm Jackie Michelle.
Welcome back.
Hey, guys.
Episode 63.
Yeah.
This one's going to be a little different. It's been months now, right? It's definitely been over a month.
Okay. Sure.
We were on another podcast.
Yeah, it was our first feature.
Yeah, it was called the R.E.A.L Podcast. And we just spoke about pretty much what we learned since we've been married.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. Definitely check it out. It was a great conversation with Yahnathan. Check out his podcast as well.
Mm-hmm. I'll put a link to the podcast in the description. And yeah, even just the way he found out about us, it was through one of our listeners. So thank you to whoever that was.
Yeah, shout out to you.
Appreciate y'all. Yeah, you got anything else?
That's it.
All right, guys. Enjoy the podcast.
Later.
Hey, real lovers, we are back with another amazing series, and this time around I have two very special guests joining me on the podcast today, none other than Jocks and Jackie Michelle. How the two of you doing today?
Good. Glad to be on.
Oh man, it is such an honor to have the two of you guys on the podcast so much. You are doing amazing work with your YouTube channel and the podcast that you guys have. And before we even dive into what we're going to get into today, just let the real lovers know a little bit about you, how they can find you guys, and check out what y'all got going on.
All right, I guess I'll go first. My name is Jocks Michelle. I'm married to this lovely lady, Jackie, 6 years now. And you can find me on Twitter at coach_JOX. And our email is michelmatters@gmail.com.
Yes, and our Instagram is at Michel Matters. And we also have our website and our YouTube page where we basically talk about everything dealing with marriage, relationships, adulting, anything that would be relevant to a millennial couple or just anybody willing to listen today.
Most definitely. And let them know the name of the channel and the podcast so that they can check it out.
That is Michel Matters Podcast.
That's right. Real lovers, make sure you guys go show them some love and support. I promise you, after you hear the discussion and the things that we dive into today, you are going to want to go listen to more. So without further ado, let's talk about what we're going to get into today, which is things you guys learn after getting married. I truly believe that this is going to be so helpful to a lot of the real lovers and listeners out there. A lot of them are still single. They desire to get married, but oftentimes they don't know what lies ahead. So I just want to kick things off by asking you guys this question. Do you think most singles know what truly lies ahead after they say, I do?
I'll say no, just because, I don't even think we do.
Right. Yeah.
So it is a true learning experience. But yeah, there's definitely, we always talk about like how our expectations have changed, I guess.
Yeah.
From before to now. And yeah. It was a not rude awakening, but it was an awakening, I guess.
For sure.
I love it. I love that honesty. So let's talk for a minute about some of those expectations. Let's start with you, Jackie. What were some of the expectations that you had before you got married?
I guess one of them is, living in Fairyland for a little bit. So you're just expecting, or I was expecting like, oh, okay, it's going to be like date night every day and, no hardships. I knew there would be hardships, but you don't really think about that. You think about, wow, I get to spend the rest of my life with this person. And of course, you're in love and we're grounded in the word and everything like that. So it's like, oh, it's going to be great. And it is great. I'm not saying it's not great. I'm just saying like there's real life, like you deal with each other's families and not even in a bad way. It could be hospital visits. There are deaths, there are bills, there's work and stresses from that. So it's a big balance. That there's a balance that doesn't exist, but you have to make it work within real life. And I don't think when I was single that I really thought about that.
That's real, yo. That's helpful right there. What about you, Jocks?
um,
I know what that chuckle means, but I'm gonna let you expound on that.
let's see. I'll try to go. I'll start it in a different way. So one of the big things are I kind of thought it was gonna be easy. Like not that I mean, granted, easy is relative, but I didn't think it would be the level of work because I mean we had dated for so long. I just expected, oh, we just move in together and business as usual. But it's very different when to go from dropping her off after dates to dropping her off and she's following you in the house. So yeah, I mean, I underestimated the level of work. I thought, every day I'd have a steak dinner and that, yeah, you're gonna have sex every day, and it's just yes, it was unrealistic.
Right.
But I didn't know any better.
Right.
I didn't know people got tired after work every day.
Yo, and what both of you share is so real, right? And I think that there are a lot of us, and when I say us, I'm talking about people who are still unmarried, single out there, that we expect a lot of those things that you said. Maybe some people may not be brave enough to actually say it verbally, but
Yeah.
they're at least thinking like, yep, I want all of that Jackie just said. I want all of that Jocks just said. And to find out that when you get married, maybe you have to make some adjustments to some of those expectations.
Yeah.
So I want to get your perspective again on singles. When you look at the things that you did and didn't know prior to marriage and the things that you know now that you are married, what things do you think most singles are probably clueless about when it comes to marriage?
I guess because you touched on like having sex every day, right? So I think compromising, a lot of singles I hear, will say that they're ready to compromise.
Oh yeah, they say that a lot. Oh man, I hear that all the time. I'll be like, I don't know if y'all are telling truth or lies, man. I don't know if y'all know what y'all saying.
Exactly. It's like when you're saying you're willing to compromise, it's like, okay, it's not just, well, I'll do the laundry and he'll do the dishes. It's okay, are you willing to have sex more than you think you are, or less than, or like how can you make it work? It's not just, oh, well, he's not listening to me that I'm tired. What about, are you listening to him? Like, you have to look at it both ways. So I think just even compromising in that aspect is a big one.
One thing that I guess I would add, and it kind of correlates, is like the word submission.
Oh, okay.
I think coming into yeah, it's one of those.
You already know. Y'all hit on two of those hot buttons, right? Submission and then compromise is right there in number 2.
Yeah. So, but it's real. Like submission, one, we kind of always learn it from one perspective, like that the wife is to submit to the husband, and that's a mission right there.
Yeah.
Or a mission. So, but it's also learning the other way. Like as a husband, you are to also submit to your wife and just what that looks like. I don't think we touch on that enough or talk about what that looks like, because one, submission has a negative connotation and people have, their own preconceived notions about what that looks like. They think of it as, almost settling or being forced to do things. But that, along with the idea of what it means as far as for a husband to be the head of your household, that is, as a single man, I was clueless as to what that really looked like. And coming into marriage, it's something I've learned the hard way. And leading when it's hard, it's just one of those areas. Submitting when it's hard, that's just not something I guess we talk about enough before people get married.
That's real. So you guys hit on two of the main things I hear people talk about a lot when it comes to marriage. And like I said, to repeat those again, submission, compromise, and then Jocks, you just hit on one that I think is also important, that leadership aspect. That's another thing that I'm starting to see people focus in a little bit more on, women who are single saying how important it is for them to have a man that leads. And then, men talking about the importance of them being in a position to lead, their wives and their families. How does leadership come into play, for you guys? Or, did you have an idea in your mind of what that would look like, and did it match up to what it actually looks like today?
Oh,
I don't know about you, but I think I was looking at it on even surface level things, like where are we gonna eat today?
yeah.
But you don't see that as like a leadership thing. It's just kind of like, okay, what are we eating today?
Yeah, I think coming into the marriage, and it's a work in progress, is the definition of leadership, right? Because I have a theory that in life, most people just want to be led. But
I agree with you there.
But
it's easier.
It is.
So I think there's a tendency to, like, what my wife's definition of leadership is, I think when we first got married, is different from mine. Because like she said, like, she thinks on a real, like, micro level of leadership. And I only thought about it at the macro level, like where we were going to live, how we're going to, basically run the household. Like, I only thought about it in that mode, like spiritually.
And that stuff, it was easy for me to submit to. It was like, oh, okay, sure. Pick where we're going to live and pick, you do that. But then when it came to like dates, I would think because of the dating process, it's like typically the man would suggest a date or wherever we were doing, you were kind of setting that up. And then that kind of switched. So it was like, oh, so I guess that's not important anymore. I mean, it's still important, but like there are bigger things that are more important, spiritually leading the house. Like that's more important than, macaroni and cheese. Like,
yeah. So I think the first part of it was, I guess, defining what the leadership structure was going to look like. And then it was the putting it in practice part, which is also hard. So it's like, I think my wife had also the idea that, okay, once we got married, we would have Bible study every single night together. And I was more focused, I guess, like on individual Bible study.
Right.
But that's something that also like needs to be discussed, and how we're gonna handle certain things, and even coming down to like what church we're gonna go to.
Yeah.
It's just defining the roles and then actually putting into practice, and that takes a lot of work, like being confident enough to make certain decisions and accepting whatever the outcome is, because that's what being a leader is. And that's why a lot of people don't want to take that position, is because you have to make a decision and stand by whatever it is that happens afterwards. So it's not the glorious position that it maybe looks like before you get married.
Yo, that's real. And something that you brought up that I think is so relevant, right, is the difference in the way men and women think, right? And the example that you gave with the macro versus the micro, I think that is something that happens so often. And we often don't take that into consideration as singles, for sure, right? Because as you stated, a lot of those decisions that are often, I guess you could say, given to the man to make prior to marriage, once you get married, it sounds like, now the man is kind of looking to the woman like, okay, you gonna help me out a little bit with this.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair, right? Because then there's this balance where it's not always expected for him to do, it all, but to say, hey, I do value your input in this as well. So I'm curious, when you look at your own relationship and your own marriage, where else have you noticed like that macro versus micro perspective coming into play?
That was deep. That's a great point, man. I never, a lot of times, like, I don't think about stuff like that until I actually like say it, and it just comes out.
Yeah.
But I think, and I don't know if this falls under leadership, but the idea of like how we run our household. I run the household, I guess, on a macro level, but to me, Jackie's the day-to-day manager of the house.
Okay.
So she handles a lot of the small things. I wouldn't call them small, but just a lot of the things, I guess, that would slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
And I focus more on just the wide lens of running of the household. Like, okay, these are the next construction projects we'll do, or just, I guess I don't know if I really thought about it. I don't know about you.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. Like I guess I focus more on like you said, the day-to-day, or even, I don't know if that even falls into that, but like the different roles that we have, it may not seem like the roles that we should have typically.
What do you mean?
Like handling finances.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of thing. Like I typically do, I don't know,
The bookkeeping.
the bookkeeping.
I
Yeah,
like that.
because when it comes to our finances, like,
hmm
honestly, I'm just more focused on the bottom line number, and
Right.
Jackie's more focused on the individual budgets.
That's true.
And I'm just worried about, okay, have we hit this milestone? Have we hit that milestone?
Mhm.
And Jackie's like, well, we need to cut back here at this spot and this spot. And like, I guess that's the way we handle our finances, just the way we run the house in general, I guess is more of a micro level.
So in that sense, I would make sure, like I would track the day-to-day spending or whatnot, and then we would just come together once a month, and I'll be like, "Here's what happened."
Because I'm like, just call me when something's not there,
Yeah.
or. But yeah, if the purchase is like under $100, have at it. Like, it's all yours.
Yeah, and I love those examples that you gave too. And one of the primary reasons I love those examples is because it illustrates how the difference in macro and micro thinking doesn't always have to be at odds, right? Like the two of you from the example that you just gave, it complements one another. It's almost as if, like for you, Jack, it's like, I don't necessarily want to be involved with the micro, and I trust you to take care of those things, where it's not like, oh, do this because you have to do this or because you're a woman. Like, it's not like that. It's just, this is what works best for our relationship, and I really like the fact that comes through.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a question. When you look back, like you guys said, I just want to confirm you've been married for 6 years, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to like year one. If we can, like, let's take the time machine back to year one for a second. When would you say is the first time like marriage really got like real for you, where you were like, oh, okay, yeah, this is real right here? Like, when was that? What did that look like for each of you?
I think, would it be the money thing? Was that your one? So
yeah.
So I guess the short story is I had a credit card that was not accounted for.
Okay.
And this was before we were organized. And I don't know how it came out, and Jackie was like, you owe this amount on this. And it was like one of those, you're married because it's like, it's my credit card. Why is it such a big deal? And it was like, okay, this is the first time where I really had to, like, I'm married, so I guess everything I have also matters to her and affects her in one way or another. And it was like, we had to have a real sit down conversation.
Come to Jesus moment right there.
About,
oh man, that's major right there. When you said it's a come to Jesus moment. Yo, that's real.
Maybe to some people that's not, but for us, especially because at the time, I mean, we didn't have a lot of other things going on, and that was a big thing, because I didn't see the big deal in it, but she did, and it forced me to see, okay, why is it such a big deal?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I guess we're married. Yeah. So I have to consider her in those types of decisions. Like, for a long time as a single person, you only think about your finances on an individual level. And I mean, I think that's why a lot of people still, when they come into marriages, they have individual accounts. Because that is a sensitive thing. Like, money is always a touchy subject.
Oh yeah.
So that, marriage isn't exempt. So that, I guess, and that's one of the things that I guess people always say it can be the downfall of a marriage is finances. And running into that issue early, I feel like was really good for us, because it forced us, one, to get organized, because before that we weren't organized.
Not at all.
And it forced us to get organized and
have tough discussions.
Yeah, and now we have monthly budget meetings, so we don't have unaccounted for credit cards.
Exactly.
Yo, that's good though. I love it. So if we look back at that experience that you guys had, let's talk about how were you guys able to resolve it? It went from being an issue to now it's something that you guys have settled. What did the resolution process look like?
Well, I had to let him know that I knew about it. So that was,
she was like, that was number one.
Yeah. And just like really sit him down and be like, listen, like, this is how I feel about this. Just make sure like we were both heard. And keep each other accountable throughout that whole process. So we continued to have conversations. We cut the budget back a little, because it honestly, it wasn't even that much
Yeah, it wasn't that much money
on the card.
Mhm.
It was just the fact that I did not know about it.
Yes.
So yeah, we came up with a plan to pay it off, and we did, and it was just basically keeping track of each other and the budget and not being afraid of talking about that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing for us because I'm big on conflict resolution, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Mhm.
I'm one of those, I don't go to sleep angry people. So that was one thing we had to really work on when we got married, is because we have different styles when it comes to conflict resolution. Jackie's very, okay, here's the situation. We need to talk about this right now.
Mhm.
But me, I need to process information. I need to get the right words together before I say something, either I don't mean
Mhm.
or something rash.
Mhm.
But yes, I agree this needs to be handled today, just not right at this moment.
Mhm.
Right.
So finally, it took a while, and I mean, we're still not 100% there yet, but that's one of our things is like, we have to talk about it. We have to resolve this as soon as possible. It's just the timing is always where we have to, compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because, I'm sure you guys have heard it. It's talked about so often when people talk about how important communication is in a relationship. And it's easy to say that, but then it's almost like some people forget that we have different ways of communicating, right? And sometimes those ways of communicating don't necessarily complement one another immediately. It takes some work to get to that place. And I like the fact that you just shared that example because it speaks to that point where you have to learn how your partner communicates, see how you communicate, and where are there some areas for improvement? Where are some areas where you need to, for lack of a better term, give your partner some space, if I can put it like
Mhm.
that, to like process information, because we all process information differently and at different paces. Even though, let's say, for example, the example that you just gave, where it's not that Jackie probably didn't already process that information, right? It's just that when she's coming to you with it, she's already gone through that process to some extent.
Yeah.
And now
Mm.
you're like, I need the opportunity to do that too. Like, I want to talk about it, but I just need some time to process too. And I think that's just one of those things where, we can, by hearing this example, it allows us as singles to be like, oh man, that's something that I need to be aware of. That, we may have different ways of communicating and I may have to be a little bit lenient in certain areas.
And for me, like, especially when I talk to single men, I kind of give them the heads up about why that's so important. Because to me, like, when you think about who are some of the highest paid people in TV, they're the people who speak live. And it's because it's hard, right? To
Mhm.
get something right one time.
Yep.
You have one take. And it's like, I feel like that is what it's like when I deal with my marriage. Like when I talk to my wife, I kind of feel like I have one chance to get it right. And I better say the right thing, because a lot of times it doesn't matter what you say or how you say it and how it's received. So you better be a good communicator, because you could turn people off. You could create an argument just off like how you say something. And intent doesn't matter because they don't always know your intent.
Mhm.
So what really matters is what you say and how you say it. So I think taking the time to really process and don't just say the first thing that comes to your mind, because that's typically the wrong thing. It may be the right emotion, it may be the right, but it's not the right thing to say. So kind of process that and filter as much as you can before you let it all out.
Yeah.
I'm glad you shared that. Oh no, go ahead, Jackie. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say I'm in the relationship. I'm the opposite. I'm like I just spit it out, like, but I'm working on it.
But I feel like as a man, that's where like we have to differ.
Yeah.
One of us has to be the cooler head.
Mhm.
In our relationship, I take that position. Like both of us can't be that person. I don't think, for us to
And
be
it
successful.
varies on the situation too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious, there's another aspect of communication I'm curious to get your perspective on, which is the nonverbal. Has nonverbal communication been something that you guys have had to work on at all?
I'm the facial expression guy.
Yeah, because I was gonna say facial expressions, body language,
I cannot hide my, like, sometimes my wife will say something, she's like, what? Or like, and I'm like, I didn't say anything.
But you did.
And she's like, but your face. And I'm
Yeah.
like, dang, she saw that? It's like I'm the king of facial expressions.
Yeah.
My wife is more, I guess, body language.
Mm.
Where like I feel it, and I'm like, man, what's wrong? Because like you're not being your normal self, like
Yeah.
getting on the other side of the couch.
Right. Right.
Like what's going on? So I think
Yeah.
I've kind of learned you a little
Yeah.
bit here, nonverbal.
Yeah, that's also good for like if we're out, and we're just like ready to go. We can just give each other like,
Like,
okay, it's
she look
time.
like she ready. Like I can see it in her face.
Yeah.
That person's talking her to death. All right, guys, let's wrap this up.
Yeah. But no, for sure. Yeah, you feel it because it's you know your spouse and you just know when something's wrong. You could keep saying no, nothing's wrong, but like your face is saying everything is wrong. So and then that then leads to verbal communication. So at least in this house it does.
Or it should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So I want to take you guys back for just a moment. Going back prior to getting married. Just have a really simple question. Do you feel like you were properly prepared prior to getting married?
I think we both had some pretty good examples of great marriages as far like to look to. But I don't think I was prepared. I don't think I was properly prepared. People will give you advice and tell you things and it's like, yeah, that's cute, but that doesn't really help. Or like no one really dug deep into what submission was, what running a household really looks like. I don't really know how we could do that even today. Like I think that's something we talk about all the time. Like how can we really have people know what that's like in church and have these conversations in church? I mean, that's why this podcast is great because we can have that conversation. But yeah, I mean, there were so many great examples of marriages in our lives, but you never really know what goes on in people's homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is on the job training.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that literally. those literal words were just going through my head.
Yeah, because it's like, and there's some things that, and I guess you don't know till you get married. It's like, I don't know if I could explain this to you. You just kind of have to be there.
Yeah.
And when it's there, like, okay, now you understand. Like, you wouldn't understand until you did it. Someone could tell you, like, people tell you marriage is hard, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, it is hard there's hard things for different people. Like some people that have, financial struggles. Some people have communication issues. Everybody has a different struggle, but it's all hard, I think. I don't think any marriage is easy. And as far as like being prepared, I don't know. Like I always say, I don't feel like I got a good understanding of what it means to be the head of a household. And maybe I didn't ask the right questions because I didn't know what to ask.
Right.
But now that I'm in the position, that's one of those things is like, if I could meet another, single guy and I had to like tell him one thing to be ready for, it would be that. So it's like what it means to be the head of a household. And I'm still learning. I don't have all the answers. But I think if you can kind of get that down, it'll help a little bit at least.
Yeah.
Yo, I love it. I love how real it is, man. Like I can really, I don't know how to say it. Like I've had conversations with other married couples before. And, sometimes like I get the information they're sharing, but like I'm able to really connect with what you guys are saying. And I love that. That's for me, like I can probably count on one hand how many times I've been able to do that. And that's extremely valuable to me because I don't feel like you guys are withholding anything. It's just the fact that you're saying like, listen, like it's some stuff that you just won't get it until you get in it. And it's like I can give you little examples and tell you a little bit about this, that, and the third. But some stuff you just, like you said earlier, man, on the job training. And that's real. It's a tough kind of pill to swallow because that means that people are going to have those moments when, oh man, it's just got real, right? And, you want to try to minimize those, but I don't know if that's always the case. There's always going to be those moments when things get real. The question is, what do you do and how do you respond once that happens, right?
Yeah. It's one of those things like, I think we're kind of lucky because we have a lot of friends in our age group who are also married. So we're all kind of going through something, and you can bounce stuff off each other. We're kind of lucky in that way. Like, hey man, I'm really struggling with this, or man, Jackie keeps doing this, and it's like, bro, my wife been doing the same thing, and it's like you have someone who at least you can just bounce ideas off of, like, or maybe they've been through something. And it's like, all right, you should try this. That's one way I handle it, and it's just kind of building up that group that you can probably go to and share different ideas on stuff like that.
Yo, that's real. And you bring something up that I'm curious to get both of your perspectives on. What role does, I guess you could say, outside advice play in your marriage? Like, how do you guys weigh what other people say? For example, what you just shared, where, somebody may be like, well, man, maybe you want to try this. Like, how do you respond to that when somebody gives you like, yo, you should try this in your marriage? Is it something like you immediately like, let me go try it? Or are you like, hold on, like, let me take a minute to do some evaluation? Like, how do you process that?
Have that happen before?
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. Like, some of the people that I've gotten some bad advice from are from church, right? And it's like older people.
Wow.
And it's like, thank goodness, I wasn't completely foolish. Like, I had also been dating for a long time, so it's not like I'm completely new to you. But like, some things I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna work at my house.
Yeah.
And, I was like, and some people have gotten great advice from, like, some people from my job who had failed marriages, and they just kind of know like what not to do. And they've kind of like, look, man, because one of the things I got from one of my coworkers was kind of the same thing. Like, hey, keep as many people out of your marriage as possible. Like, it should be you and your wife, and you can get help from other people, but don't let people into your marriage.
Yeah.
So it's like safeguarding, what we have. And like, I would be disappointed if Jackie was running off telling, her first thoughts to someone else all the time rather than coming to me.
I remember getting, this was the most trash advice ever. But
thank you, because that was what I was about to ask. That was going to be my next question. What is some of the worst, I like the way you put it, the most trash advice that you've received? Let us know.
Yes. So someone told me, they will remain nameless, but someone told me, don't ever let my mother-in-law like cook for us and bring it home.
What?
Which I feel,
Yeah.
I
couldn't believe it either.
Because then I guess it's like, like she's still providing for him or whatever. I don't know what they were thinking, but it started to put a strain. And I took that advice for some time, and it started to put a strain. So whenever she would like bring food home with him, I would feel some type of way. Like, I would be like, oh, like, does she not think I can cook for him? Like, doesn't she think I take care of her son? And it wasn't even like that. It was just.
And it got to the point where I kind of noticed. Yeah. And like, my mom would be like, hey, do you want some food? I'm like, no. Like, to my own mom. Like, that's crazy. And in like, we're both Haitian, like in our community, like, you don't turn down food.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that was rough. I can't believe you did that.
Yeah, but that was terrible advice.
Yeah, it was.
So I just had to stop that, because it's such a blessing to even receive food from her and from my mom too. So it's like, I don't know why I followed that. But yeah, I definitely take advice with a grain of salt these days, because you just never know. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the worst advice I got was.
What was that trash advice you got, man?
Yeah, it was like, I'm trying to see how I can clean it up. But it was just like, basically to do things to make my wife happy so that she could make me happy later on. And I was like, bro, that's how you operate?
Yeah.
Like, everything he did was with the in the back end, like, so I can have sex. And I was like, no offense, but that's terrible. If you have to do something for your wife to get sex, there's a bigger issue there.
Yeah.
But like, I was like, why do you think that's good advice? I don't know. I just thought that was terrible.
That's crazy.
Yo, I appreciate y'all for sharing that. Yo, that's definitely helpful for us as singles out there to be aware of some of the things that people may try to present and pass it off as good advice. And, Jackie, as you so eloquently put it, it's trash. You just got to be able to call it what it is. And I love that.
Yeah.
So let's go back. What are some things that you wish you knew prior to getting married? Like, what do you feel like if there was one thing that you could have known before, you feel like it might have been helpful, at least maybe in year one?
I would say that things change all the time.
Mm.
Had
How
I
so?
known that, I wouldn't try to look for some sort of formula to make sure that things work. It's really just being able to adapt and like recalibrate to whatever it is that's happening in that season of life. So yeah, year one is not going to look like year 3. It's not going to look like year 6. Like you just have to continue to push forward and roll with it.
Yeah. I think for me, whew, I don't know why I just keep going back to it, but I think that leading is acting. I think I kind of gave it lip service, like Jackie should kind of do things because I say so, or things should happen because I say so. But it hits harder when Jackie sees me do it, or she does it because she sees the work that I put in to make the decision. And I think, yeah, it just hits different when I always say I don't want Jackie to follow me because I'm a man. I want her to follow me because she trusts me and I'm doing the right things. And I don't think that's something I knew or really understood before I got married.
That's real. Real. Yo, both of those are on point. If you could say anything out there to the singles, that really want to get married, what is something that you would pass on to them that you think they could take into their marriage in the future?
Ooh, develop themselves. I'm like, the idea that someone's like your better half is like, I think you should come in this as whole a person as you can, and don't put that burden on other people. I think just coming into a relationship and being, to me, like, be as good as you can be at everything. Try to have, I don't want to say perfect. You can't be perfect, but just to be complete. Like, don't look for someone to complete you, because it puts a strain on someone that they didn't necessarily sign up for.
Yeah. I would say to learn what serving really looks like. So it's kind of like what I touched on earlier. Like, yes, serving to you may look like making sure you're cooking all the time, or that there are groceries in the fridge, or that the house is clean. But serving to your husband, I guess that's when love languages apply. Like, what does serving look like to your spouse? Is that a listening ear? Is that, sitting down and communicating? Is that sex? Is that like, what is it? What is real serving for your spouse? So I think just, I don't know, being a servant.
Yeah. I think that sacrifice that's necessary that's underrated.
Yeah.
That is one of that I think, yeah, for sure, coming into it, because I think we're just naturally selfish, right?
But if we talk about dying to self, and that applies to everything.
Leaving and cleaving, like what that really looks like.
Yeah.
It's harder than it looks. But if you come into it, I guess with knowing that that's what it takes, maybe that'll help you, and you can start thinking about it. And I always talk about, like, I was praying for the woman I would marry from like 14, 15 years old. I didn't even know what that looked like, right? I was just, my pastor said it one day, and he said that's what he did. I was like, maybe I should do it.
I feel like you prayed for the both of us, because I was not praying for a spouse at this point.
Keeping it real. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I don't even know why I did it, but I just did it. And I think because I was thinking about that it always kind of forced me to like, because being the husband that you need to be and what that means, right? So we always talk about, like, I was always looking for what a good husband looked like. And I only thought about it because I was praying for a wife. So I think if you start, like, being intentional in that, it can kind of lead you into trying to being the spouse that you need to be. So I feel like that worked for me too.
There are two words that I think often people look at them as synonymous, and I want to get your perspective as a married couple. You mentioned the word earlier of compromise, and you recently just mentioned the word sacrifice. How do the two of those differ in marriage, if they do?
Another deep question. I don't know. Because compromise is more like of a two-way street, I feel like.
I think at the end of the day, someone is going to have to sacrifice something.
Mm-hmm.
So while you're reaching the terms and agreement, I guess you will compromise in that area. Because I'm trying to think of the last time we had a situation. It was, okay, so a compromise was, we're going to take a little bit of what you want and a little bit of what I want, and we're going to try to make it work. But we can't sustain this forever. So at some point, one of us is going to have to sacrifice. And I don't know, I guess that's a compromise in itself, sacrificing.
Yeah, I feel like they are, I guess they are kind of synonymous.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it. Because when I think about sacrificing for you, I think of, on a grand scale, it's like I work more so that you have to work less. I guess like that's what I think of when I think of like sacrificing.
Yeah.
And the compromise of it, I don't know. I never really considered if that was a compromise or not. I feel like the compromise is between the two of us. The sacrifice is like just the way I think about it individually, like just on my level. I guess we both sacrifice.
No, for sure.
But
yeah.
I don't know. That was a really deep question.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that point that you just made though, Jocks. I think you really just got to the heart of it, which is compromise is something that is going to, is a decision that the two of you have to make right together, because there's something that you both desire, and it may require that you both, make some concessions in order to achieve what you ultimately want to achieve. However, a sacrifice may be something that you may not even convey it to your partner. You just do it. And it benefits them. And to a certain extent, you kind of biting, the bullet to a certain extent. But it's not something that you would make apparent, like, yo, I'm doing this for you. Like, cause then it's not really a sacrifice, right? Because at that point, you just trying to flex. Like why you flexing? Like, you ain't gotta keep bringing that up. But the sacrifice is like, you know what? I know he or she needs or wants X, Y, Z, and I'm willing to do A, B, and C in order so that they can achieve that or have that or experience that. And you don't necessarily tell them about it. It's something that is within yourself, but you're ultimately doing it for the benefit of the two. So that's kind of what I took from what you shared. And I think that is a good way, if we were to make a distinction between the two, I think that's where it is, because with a compromise, in order for it to be a compromise, both people have to be privy to what's happening. Yeah. But a sacrifice, the other person doesn't necessarily have to be privy that you're making a sacrifice, and they're still able to reap the benefit from it.
That's true.
But I was just curious, because those are words that, we hear them tossed around a lot. And I think most times they are used synonymous. And I was just curious to see, like, just based on you having given that example of, the fact that sacrifice is a part of a marriage as well, wanting to, compare and contrast that to the compromise. So I appreciate that. So let me ask you guys this question. When you look at year one and you look at where you are now in year 6, what are some of the more notable differences?
I think we have a better idea of our roles in the marriage. I think in the beginning we were just kind of all over the place. We all try to do everything, and it's like, look, you're really not good at that. You shouldn't do it. And it's like, because it's like, look, Jux, just stop washing dishes, all right? Because if you leave one more, like, I kind of had to like, all right. But then it was like, yo, Jackie, let me fold the clothes, because you just roll them up in the ball, and and it's like, let me have that. Like,
I love that. That is hilarious.
I think we definitely have a clear sense of the purpose in our marriage too, and how we can just contribute to other people's lives and like what our roles are in their lives. I think that's been more clear in the last 6 years.
Yeah,
I like that.
I feel like we communicate way better now than what we used to. That was a struggle. Do you want to talk about micro? I think that was one of those things, was communication. Like, I thought like, hey, how was your day was good enough. But it was like, no, like Jackie's one of those who like, tell me your dreams and it's like, yo, we're just having dinner. Like, I didn't think that it was that important, but now like she likes to hear stuff like that. Like knowing what her love language is, I guess. It has, I think that's one of the things we've gotten way better at. is feeding each other's love languages.
Yeah.
But yeah, from year 1 to year 6, yeah.
Okay, there's been noticeable differences.
Yeah, for
sure. Like just a lot of growth. Even just really seeing how the correlation between Christ loving the church and then a spouse loving the other spouse has been is just crazy. It's one of those things like once you're in it, you're like, oh, okay, that's what means. That whole time, that's what that verse was talking about. Like, yeah.
It hit different year 6.
Yeah.
You know, another thing that often comes up, you know, especially when we look at marriage from a biblical perspective, right, is the two becoming one. You know, it sounds great. You know, what does that look like practically? You know, because you gave the example earlier about like the finances, right? And how, you know, there were some things that weren't known to everybody. Were there other things that maybe, you know, it took some time to kind of, you know, come together as one and kind of merge everything together?
I would say our families.
Yeah.
Because when the two become one, the bride and groom, most people don't also think about like the siblings and and everyone's parents. I think there was a time when your mother was injured and my mom ended up taking care of her.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's when it was like,
wow.
we're like a real family out here. Like, like there's no, you know, I mean, obviously sometimes people just want to cook extra food on Thanksgiving. So we'll hop around, but we spend Thanksgiving together. We spend like holidays together. It's like, oh, this is like all merged as one. Like it feels good. Yeah. So yeah, I think I've seen it in that way. I don't know if you could think of anything.
Something else where we merged. Nah, I think that was the best example. I can't really think of anything off top.
Yeah. Or let me ask you this question. You know, when you hear people talk about, you know, two becoming one, what does that mean to you guys?
I think a lot of times when people use that verse, they're usually saying it to say what you aren't doing, right? Like they're saying, oh, but two should become one. Like we shouldn't have the disagreements of like family, because a lot of times it goes back to family, that verse. And I think for me, when I think of two should become one, is like being on the same page. We actually did a podcast episode, right, where we talk about like the factors to success, I guess, in marriage. And it's like some of them are like having the same going to the same church and having the same views on finances. So when I think of two becoming one, I think of stuff like that, like getting the big points. We gotta be on the same page.
Yeah. I think it's also like not moving unless we're both on board. So it's like, okay, we're not going to go through with whatever this big decision is, or don't, you know, I'm not going to give you an answer right away. I have to, you know, talk to my spouse first.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, you don't move without the other person because you're one. Like, your decision also affects the whole house. So
I don't just inform you of decisions.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. No,
we have to and discuss it first, and hopefully it's a joint decision.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Now I want to go back to something that you had mentioned earlier, Jackie, with regards to purpose. What role does that play in your marriage?
I mean, it's the whole thing, and it's the whole point of why are we here? Obviously, every Christian's purpose is to share the gospel. But then in our marriage, how do we use our gifts together to do so? How do we, you know, what areas can we serve together in church, in our communities? It's so loaded, but like everything that we do at the, like finances, that yields to a bigger purpose. Our home, that yields to a bigger purpose. It's not just for us. It's for everyone. It's for like he gave us this home to steward over, not to like just hide. And, you know, obviously right now we kind of have to, but because of the quarantine, but yeah, it's to, if people need a place, all right, come on. Like, you know, we've definitely had those times where people have asked and we're like, all right, we're gonna make it work. They can come. But yeah, I think everything is in the grand purpose of it all.
I like that. Now I'm curious, when you look at purpose, when we go back to year 1 to now year 6, has it evolved over time, or have you always had that perspective of, the purpose that you guys have?
I feel like when we first got married, we had very individual purposes.
Okay.
And I think it really changed after we went to a marriage conference. And they spoke about just how it was one of the couples, they spoke about how they served together, or they had a business together. I can't remember what it was. And I remember at the time, Jackie had started her business, but it was very clear we could not work together in the business. But serving together, that's something we could definitely do.
Yeah.
Right. And it was like, okay, how can we make our individual purposes come together? So it'd be like, I feel like one of my purposes at the time, or still, it was coaching it and mentoring, and like, how could Jackie be involved? So she would always like do little things like make bags or like goodie bags for my players. And Jackie was very involved, I guess, with her business too. And it was, I mean, I was a quote unquote marketing director, but it was just finding ways to join them together. That's something that changed from year 1 to year 6.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Man, this has been such a phenomenal discussion. I've truly enjoyed talking to the both of you. And what I would love if you guys could leave me and all the real lovers out there, especially all of those who are single, when you look back over, all 6 years of your marriage so far, and, Lord willing, many years to come, what would you say are some of the more valuable lessons that you personally or collectively learned together?
I think, and I don't know what verse this is. I know it's in the Old
You
Testament.
don't have to worry about it. I try to find it. So you good.
Yeah. It's when they talk about a cord of 3 strands.
Okay.
Not
Easily.
Yeah, being not easily broken. I think that's so true.
Yeah.
If you keep God at the center of your marriage, like, not to say that things will be easy, but some of the decisions that you have to make, it's kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Like, and not only that, but just it that grounds us. Like, nothing could separate us. We've gone through things. We've gone through trials, but like, seeing all that has happened, it's like, wow, like, with God at the center, for sure. Like, we're taking our vows seriously. Like, nothing can separate this. So yeah, I think that's a valuable lesson. Just keeping God at the center.
Yeah.
What about you, Josh?
One would be, it's funny because this is the title of our next podcast episode, or the podcast episode we have is Keep That Date Energy. And it's like, never stop dating. Especially like the longer you've been together, that can wane off. And it's like, how can you, keep that alive? And I think that's one of the keys, is like keeping that date energy between the two of us.
Yeah. We were watching a movie today, and I mean, it's an old movie, but one of the lines was how one husband was saying he continues to study his spouse, and he doesn't know if he has a college degree yet, but he's working at it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that is so cool. Like, where am I? Do I have an AA? Do I have a high school diploma? Like, tell me. So I think it just goes back to that whole dating energy. Like, keep trying to find out stuff about your spouse, and doing little things. Like, I feel like when you're dating and you're trying to get that person and pursue that person, it's like, oh yeah, I want to do this. I want to get them flowers. I'm going to leave a note or whatever it is. And it's like, when you're married, sometimes you just forget, or you have other things on your mind, so you don't even think about that stuff. Yeah. So I think for sure, continue to study your spouse.
Yeah.
You guys have dropped so many golden nuggets on us all throughout this discussion. I promise you, like, this is definitely one that I'm excited to go back and listen to again, because, like I said, I could just really connect with the things that you guys were saying. Like, I don't even know how to explain it other than it's like, I know y'all done lived it, because it just comes out in the way that you share things, and, just how real you guys are with your experiences, and how open you are, and how transparent you are. And I just want to thank you guys so much for that. And before we go, I just want to give you the opportunity by passing the mic over to you. Are there any questions that you like to ask me, or are there any last or closing words you want to leave to the real lovers and the listeners?
I don't know. Any questions? I don't know. One thing I will say is, Thanks for having us on the podcast.
For sure.
You're super professional. Way more professional than we are.
Yes.
So you giving me something to work towards.
Yeah, we love this. Just this platform and just all the useful and godly information that you're putting out there. Yeah. I guess for just a question for you, how do you take these conversations into your either walk with Christ or pursuit of a spouse, if that's a desire of yours? Like, how do you live it out, the conversations that you're having?
Oh man, that's a great question. And first and foremost, it's been an honor, having the two of you on as guests. I have learned so much, and I know that the real lovers have as well. And I truly count it as a blessing to be able to have conversations with amazing married couples such as yourself, and a lot of the other guests that come on the podcast to discuss a wide variety of topics. And for me, I've been podcasting for some years. And I promise you, like when I first started podcasting, this is just to be real. This is before Right to Real Love. This was even before I was doing, a faith-based podcast. I'm not ashamed to admit, I used to be one of them people that had a negative view of marriage. Like I used to be as childish and immature as to be like, I'm not even gonna call it marriage. I just call it that M word. Like I have come so far, and I promise you, it's from discussions like this, Jackie. Like today, like you guys have given me like a renewed desire for marriage, and not because you guys made it seem like, it's a fairy tale or you made it seem like it's something that's totally easy. I mean, just the opposite, within the first 10 minutes of the podcast, you guys said the complete opposite of that, that it wasn't a fairy tale and that it does take work. But I've walked away and I'm walking away now with just seeing that you can take those challenges and they can help you to improve as an individual. It can help you to learn your spouse to a greater degree and ultimately be able to fulfill the purpose that God brings you and that person together for. So for me, I look forward to going back, listening to this again, taking notes on some of the particular things that you guys share, especially with regards to like communication. I want to note some of those things that you, Jock, were repeating. Like, like when you talked about leadership, I'll be honest, you mentioned it so much that you had me thinking like, oh man, like I ain't even realized like that's that important. So like you definitely got me walking away like, okay, I really need to make sure like, because I started thinking like you said you were thinking prior to marriage, like I didn't really know what that was. And if I'm being completely honest, like I don't really know what that entails either when it comes to like leading in a marriage. So you've given me something to really spend some time learning as much as I can. Because like you guys said, on the job training, some stuff you just will just have to experience, but it gives me something to at least pray about, right? To focus on, asking God to help me to be able to either start developing now or to be in a position where I can develop those things after I do get.
That's good.
Yeah. And I guess you kind of touched on something. I don't think I've verbalized, but I think about all the time when it comes to the purpose in our marriage, at least for now, because we're still young, is that marriage is cool. Like, I think it does get a bad rap sometimes, but like, I'll be telling people this thing is dope. Like, get you a good woman. I mean, you won't regret it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think being married is cool. I want people to definitely leave with that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I promise you, you guys definitely have left me with a positive feeling and excitement for when my time does come and when I meet the right woman and I get married and being able to have some of those experiences, being able to like you guys for recount some of that trash advice that you give, like, and just being able to laugh at it after the fact. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I really appreciate you guys for just coming on and being so open and honest. And if you're ever interested in coming back, I promise you guys have an open invitation to come back on the podcast whenever you like.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Now, let the real lovers know where they can follow you guys on YouTube and check out your channel, as well as subscribe to and listen to your podcast.
On our podcast, we're on all platforms. Michel Matters Podcast. Wherever you find us, rate us 5 stars. YouTube is also Michel Matters Podcast. Like and subscribe. I guess that's what all the YouTubers say, right?
Yep. We are a Black Christian millennial married couple. We're adulting. We're trying to figure out what that looks like. And we talk about everything from dating, careers, children, travel, business, anything. So yeah, follow us and hopefully you get something out of it.
Oh, they definitely will. They definitely will. Like, I've listened to some episodes of your podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed them. I really like the fact that you guys have like the visual recording that goes along with it, especially, when you have guests, just seeing y'all collectively chilling on the couch, just having those real talk conversations. Like, I love that. I live for that type of stuff. So I just want to encourage you guys, as a fellow podcaster, just keep up the great work. Continue to do what God has called you guys to do in this season of your lives and your relationship. And how can they follow you if they want to, contact you guys on social media? How can they do that?
You can follow us on Instagram at Michel Matters and Facebook. Yeah, we have a Facebook page. You can also email us at michelmatters@gmail.com.
Perfect. Real lovers, I'm going to make sure you can find the links to their podcast, YouTube channel, all their social media. It'll be in the show notes for every single episode that'll be a part of this series over on righttoreallove.com. And with that being said, thank you both again for everything that you share with us today. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
When I pull up on you, then I might swear, ayy. Double off deuce, ayy. That just might work, ayy. When I pull up on you, then I might swear, ayy. Double off deuce, ayy. That just might work, ayy. That just might work. That just might work.